What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another poker video. If you guys are not familiar with my channel, I am doing a series right now where I'm practicing poker every single day for the next 30 days, GTO poker, which means the most mathematical, proper formula that you should be using. So today we're going to watch a video on hopefully a little bit more on betting and seeing if
Hello,
we
everyone.
can
I'm
make
Jonathan
sense
Little.
of it.
I'm here today with episode
Hey, Jonathan. I love this guy, by the way.
263
Super
of
good.
Weekly Poker Hand. I want to thank you for being here with me today. I hope life is treating you amazingly well.
It is. Thank you very much.
Today, we are again reviewing hands from the Sunday Million that one of my PokerCoaching.com members played. If you are not a member of Poker Coaching, make sure you go there and get your completely free trial. Today, he has King 10 offsuit under the gun and elects to raise it. Something this player did wrong pretty consistently was open big or high offsuit hands like King 10 offsuit, Queen Jack offsuit, etc. from early position. And this may not feel like much of a leak because, King 10 looks reasonable, but think about what you're actually doing here. You are essentially volunteering to play out of position with a hand that's going to make mostly top pair bad kicker, and you're taking your hand against everyone else at the table. This is not a good situation to be in, and
I think positioning does play like a vital role, right? Keeping in mind the blinds, where you're at in positioning. I do understand that positioning is really important. So I do get from a point of view of this that this raise is just a bit too big. It's basically 2 times the big blind. Looks like we're 150, 75, excuse me. So 300 here, you're doubling the big blind. Out of position, probably just a call.
And you would much prefer to just fold. If we are going to raise this deep stacked, by the way, I'm a much bigger fan of making it about 3 big blinds.
Oh yeah, and he's short stack.
As you get shallower, that's when you can consider min raising. All right, flop comes great for Hero. He has King 10. It comes King 10 for 2 hearts. Hero even has the King of Hearts. This hand is fantastic. If you think about the opponent's calling range in the low jack seat, button cut off. Actually, this is under the gun +2. The very early position. The opponent should have connected pretty well with this board because either the opponent has an underpair that's not going to give you much action at all, or some sort of a middle pair better, which is going to call any reasonable bet, or a draw like Queen Jack or Ace Queen or Ace Jack, or maybe even a flush draw because there are 2 hearts on board. So this is a spot where Hero needs to be betting very frequently, just in general.
Which is our King 10 guy.
Decently well with his range. It really does depend a lot on the opponent's calling tendencies.
So the pot is 1,005. In a position where I have top pair here, I'm gonna try and take a guess. You guys can kind of think about okay, so we know 1,005 is in the pot, right? We have to keep that into consideration. We can't just make a random bet. We need to have some sort of logic and understanding behind. So we've just top paired. We've 2 paired. We've literally 2 paired. Okay, so we have the best hand for sure right now, 100%. At least I'm going to believe we have the best hand. Maybe there could be a flush draw. That could be a problem. So we probably want to bet on the higher side. I'm thinking, I would think 600 or 700.
Seems to be a little bit loose. They're playing 33% of hands, which is a lot. So maybe this board doesn't connect quite as well with the opponent as it normally would. But in general, you're going to want to be betting with your best made hands. And this is certainly one of our best made hands, top 2 pair. So we want to bet. The question is how much. And in scenarios like this, I much prefer a large bet because it's very easy for the opponent to have connected.
I don't think you make a pot size bet. Not quite that
We'll
much.
have a very difficult
or maybe
time
you do.
connecting. Like say the board is King 3-2. Well, there, a smaller bet makes a lot more sense because the opponent's going to have a lot of unpaired hands. Here, though, on King 10, the 4 is obviously a bit of a blank, but on King 10, blank, the opponent's going to have a lot of draws or pairs that will call any reasonable bet. So I would bet something like 700 in this spot. And our Hero makes the classic mistake of just half-potting it. And this is something else Hero did, in my opinion, wrong throughout the whole tournament, is he did not use all of the various bet sizes. Remember, we are playing no limit Hold'em, not half-pot bet Hold'em. And using half-pot bets across the board almost certainly leaves money on the table. Because right here, right, if the opponent does have something like a king, he would have called more, right? He would have called 700, so he would have gotten 200 more chips in the pot with our opponent drawing thin. If he had a 10, same story. If he has a hand like Queen Jack, he'd also call, and he's just putting in more money worse. If he has a hand like Pocket Fives, though, Pocket Fives is not going to call 500, and it's not going to call 700. Now, it may...
Ooh, good point. So understanding that, like, again, if they don't have a good hand, they're not going to call 500. They're not going to call 700. If they're going to call 500, more than likely they're willing to call 700. So you do need to think about your bet size, being solid. And either they're going to fold out and you win, or they're going to call and you hope that you're going to win either way.
Call
so
300. Right?
Yeah, I guess you can't really be worried about it.
A small bet makes more sense, which is why, if the board was less coordinated...
And then, if you want to get, you probably just go with a really small bet if you're hoping of, $100 to $200 to look real thin, and maybe they can find it there.
You're trying to get called by marginal stuff. That's why you often want to use a small size. But here, it's pretty easy for the opponent to connect with this board, so we want to bet a little bit bigger. That's just going to make the pot larger going to the turn in the river, which will allow us to...
So he probably would have called 700,
and river bets.
And so he got the 5.
So the turn is a 5.
And he bets... Here's what happens. The opponent calls 503. He bets a pot again for 1,006. With the 5 coming out, I believe that you should be making a raise, because now he's got you've got the $500. I would say it should have been a pot size raise of... So how much was it? Yeah, the pot was $2,000. So I think a $2,000 bet, 1,800 to 2,000 probably would have been the play.
And Hero does the exact same thing. He bets half pot. And I think this is a leak. These types of things just don't feel that costly.
So a leak, meaning a mistake in your gameplay. Again, I'm just helping you out, and I'm also learning. Is basically a mistake in your game that looks bad, right? That you can kind of capitalize on and understand. So.
Because look, Hero's going to win this hand almost every time, and he's happy as can be, right? Because he made top 2 pair, he didn't get outdrawn, he's going to win the pot. But in reality, he should have won an additional 200 chips on the flop, so that's 200 chips. And then also, if he bet 200 larger on the flop, the pot would have 400 more going into it on the turn. So then Hero could then bet something like, the pot would be 2,400. He could bet something like 1,700 and just continue extracting additional value. So in this scenario,
I was a little high.
I would have definitely bet bigger on the flop and the turn. And this is something I think a lot of people just don't consider often enough. They think, should I bet or should I check? But there's another important aspect of this, right? Is how much should I bet? And in general, there are a few things you should consider.
Let's see. Hopefully we're
as you have the range advantage, which we probably do here. You want to be betting more often. As you have the nut advantage, you have more nut hands, you want to be betting more often as well. As the board connects better with your opponent's range, you typically want to be betting bigger, which again leads to big bets. All of these things are happening, right? We have the range advantage, probably, depending on the opponent's strategy. We probably have the nut advantage because the opponent will 3-bet kings pre-flop and maybe ace-king pre-flop, whereas we clearly have those in our range. And when you're out of position, you typically want to bet less often. And as you bet less often, when you do bet, you usually want to be betting bigger. So in this scenario, everything is leaning towards Hero betting big with his best hands. And this is one of Hero's best hands. So he did not play this one well, in my opinion, even though he bet the flop, as I would have done. I would have bet the flop, but I would have bet a different size.
So the other guy fold?
So he did not play this one well, in my opinion, even though he...
So the opponent folds anyway. So if you bet 1,700, he was going to fold. If you bet that amount, he was going to fold.
I would have bet. One more thing I forgot to reiterate. King 10 offsuit, under the gun, you must fold. If you raise King 10 offsuit from early position, you are lighting money on fire in essentially all games. Some people think, oh, my opponents are really bad, so I can play more hands. It's like, yeah, but you don't really want to be playing more hands from early position. Over at Poker Coaching, we have hand range charts that will show you which hands to raise from each position. I'll tell you what, I'll pull it up right now since we're here.
No, this is
from
cool.
early position, let me scroll on up. You should be raising not even ace-jack offsuit, right? So we're folding king-queen offsuit, we're folding ace-jack offsuit, which, if you want to be a little bit loose, those are the hands you can raise. But raising ace-10 offsuit, king-jack offsuit, queen-jack offsuit is almost certainly a mistake from early position. Notice you're also not even raising the pairs from early position, and not all the suited aces. So really you're just raising the absolute best hands from early position, only 10% of hands. And that's because it's so easy for someone yet to act to actually have something. So when you're taking your hand out of position against everyone else, you want to start off with a pretty nice advantage. So that's going to be it for today.